My name's Brian Dickinson. I'm a history and sociology teacher down in West Sussex. And I'm also an examiner. I've been teaching for about 26 years and I've been examining for about 20 years. So good afternoon, good evening. I hope you enjoy this next session. What this is going to be, hello Robin, what this is going to be is a session really, speaking from an examiner's point of view, about how we work and also what it is that examiners look for and sort of typical mistakes that students make when they do the exams, and what we see quite often in exams when we mark. So I'm going to go through some of those. Some of it will be specific to English, and because I do deal with English papers and also a bit about history as well, but just as an example, so you don't have to study those subjects. Anyway, there's 9 of us in here today, so I hope you enjoy this. My website will be on each slide, and so if you want to contact me directly for a copy of this, my PowerPoint, some people did last time, you can do, or if you can't, contact Satchel or Show My Homework, or whatever the company's called. They will send you a recording of this, which has got my commentary on it as well. So I'm just going to share my screen with you so that we can then start. So hopefully you've got that on there. Okay. So what do examiners look for? First of all, most examiners now mark online. So your paper will go online. Your exam scripts are sent back to the exam board, scanned into a computer, which is why you have to write in black pen most of the time. So please make sure, just be aware of that. All they see is your answers. Examiners now no longer see your name or the name of your school. So we don't see any details about you at all, which is quite good, because some people might be a bit biased towards certain schools maybe, or whether it's a girl or boy, and it takes it that literally all we see is what's written on your paper. They usually only see one question at a time. So what will happen is that we don't see whole scripts. We see, we mark like question 4, for example. We're going to question 4, we mark loads of question 4s, then go to question 5, loads of them. So we don't even know generally if the question 4 or question 5 or question 6 from one particular student, it's the same. It usually is, but we don't know. We wouldn't know that. Sometimes we recognise the handwriting. Most examiners mark around about 300 full scripts in about 3 weeks. The exam it might be different next year. I suspect it will be. The government's talking about marking in the summer. I'm not sure how that's going to work, because most teachers will be on holiday then. But the exam marking period is about 3 weeks long, and we mark roughly around 300 scripts, sometimes more. I tend to mark more than that, because I'm a lead examiner, not chief examiner. And so therefore it's quite a tight turnaround. So most people are working at school, the teachers usually, and they come home and work at home. By marking online, it means that our marking is regularly checked for accuracy, much easier. What used to happen was that the scripts were sent to us at home. We would have loads of scripts in our offices at home or spare rooms. We would mark them, send a few off now and again to be checked, and that was it. Now it's checked online, and it's very, very accurate. So any mistakes that people make tend to get picked up very quickly. So in terms of your script should be marked very much better than they used to be, say not even 10 years ago really. So our work is regularly checked. So what do examiners look for? One of the things you should really take care of is make sure your handwriting is legible. Okay, here's an example of some bad handwriting on the right hand side. If an examiner finds it difficult to read your handwriting, they may miss an important part of your answer. Make sure you show also one thing that's picked up on quite often is make sure that the question you're answering, that you show which question you're answering by writing the number of the question. That example on the right hand side, actually that's 2 questions put together. An examiner can find out, they will read it properly and they will try to work out which one it is, but you may miss it. So please, please, please make sure that when you write things out, you actually number the questions and you clearly show which one you're writing, you're answering. I know it sounds really obvious to some people. You think, well, I'll do that anyway, but it's surprising how many people don't. And when they get a bit worried in an exam, they get a little bit nervous and they forget simple things like that. So please, please, please make sure that you write them down. If you read over your question or your answer, sorry, and later on, and you think of something else and you haven't got any space, don't write in the margins or don't write at the end of the top of the script. Ask for some extra paper and highlight which question you're answering on the extra paper. Okay, some people try to cram it in somewhere else, right in between lines and things like that. Don't do that because it just makes it more difficult to read. You want to try and make it easy for the examiner if you can. That way, the examiner's going to feel less stressed. It's going to feel less tired. More likely to want to answer or mark your question properly, and it will get done accurately then. If they can't read a script, what tends to happen is that we push it up to our chief examiner or lead examiners, like someone like myself, and we try to read it, but it's not always that easy. But just, if there is a problem with your handwriting, if your handwriting is particularly bad, please speak to your learning support department or your inclusion department at school, or get your parents to do that, because what you can do is either 2 things you can do. One is get a scribe, someone who will write for you, and that does happen. And all you do, you dictate to your scribe what to write, and they write exactly what you say, or you get to use a laptop in the exam. Now, you can't just do that a week or 2 before the exam. It needs to be sorted out as soon as possible. So if you do think you've got a problem with your handwriting, and I've seen people who use computers in exams, and their handwriting is not what I call really bad, and yet they've been allowed to use it. Also, do I have a question? Would they write for you? Would they write for you for free? Oh, right, yes, the scribe will be organised by your school. So the scribe will be organised, your school will do that. If you're at school, they would organise that for you. So it normally is a TA. And they will sit with you to write for you. You wouldn't have to pay for that money. So therefore, please, you've got to sort this out. Kind of yourself. Get you or your parents. Usually get your parents. If I'm talking to students here, get your parents to go to the school or write to the school. Speak to your learning support department or inclusion department, or whatever your school calls it, and get it sorted, because it needs to be done as soon as you can, really. Don't leave it till just before an exam comes up, because they won't be able to do it. Or you get to use a laptop. That's another way you can do it. What they do in laptops or computers at school, they would turn off the spell checker. Spelling will be perfect. It shows it up, and then you type. So yes, some examiners, the ones that are scribed, the ones that are typed on the computer or laptop, they are actually sent to the examiners separately. They're not scanned in for some reason. I don't know why that is, but I sometimes mark papers that are live papers, what we call live papers, not scanned in, and they're sent separately. But, and you will also get extra time for that as well. So if you've got a problem with your handwriting, you will get extra time. I've marked papers before with handwriting is really bad and think, why haven't I had help? So they probably haven't asked for it. So you need to ask for it. You need to really try and get your teachers on board and your learning support department on board about that as well. There's no cost to the person. It doesn't really cost the school anymore. But they have to get people to do it. And sometimes they sometimes employ a TA to do it, or they get parents coming and help out, things like that. So please sort that out yourself. Okay. Make sure you read the question. I know this sounds really, really stupid. I'll give some examples in a minute of how that doesn't work. Make sure you notice what command words in the question is. So what is the question asking you to do? Okay. Make sure you know the difference between describe and explain. Describe doesn't need as much detail as explain. Make sure you do that, and make sure you read every word in the question. Now, I know that sounds really, thinking, well, of course I do that. Why would I not do that? You'll be surprised how many people don't when you get nervous in an exam. So, for example, I've got a question here. This was on a history paper not that long ago. It says explaining 2 consequences of the Cuban Revolution. Okay, now you'll be surprised, maybe you wouldn't. This was literally a history question a few years ago. What a lot of students did was talk about the Cuban Revolution. Okay, what they failed to do was explain the consequences. So literally all people saw was Cuban Revolution. I know about that, and they write a lot about that, and they don't look at the question. I mean, I have to hold my hand up here. I did this once in an exam as well. Many years ago, I sat GCSEs when they first came out in 1988, and I sat a sociology exam as an adult, and there was a question about education, and I know about that. I wrote a lot about it, and I didn't read the question properly, and it was asking something a bit different. It happens. People do it, and I see this every single year. People. And I did this with my class not that long ago, actually. I showed exactly the same question to them, and loads of them wrote about the Cuban Revolution, and they forgot to mention the consequences bit. And, oh, right, so what came after. So please make sure that that's what you do. Don't panic, slow down. Okay. After each exam period, the chief examiner, this is something that is a real gift for you. This is something that I use a lot as an examiner, and I use it as a teacher. Some teachers use this, some don't. After each exam period, the chief examiner for each subject will write a report on how that particular exam went. They take a look at the examiner's report from each example. They're freely available. You go on the example, AQA, EdXL, OCR, or anything like that, and they're freely available. Look for the past papers, and they'll be with them. The examiner will explain how each question is answered. They often explain common mistakes. So some examples give examples of students' answers, for example, and I'll show you some examples of this in a minute. So this is from a EdXL paper about Macbeth. This is on an English language paper. And what it tells you there was evidence that many students managed their time extremely well and were able to answer both sections of the question in many cases, very detailed focus. It was noted that some of the answers to part A, candidates did not always appear to understand that there was questions requiring a close scrutiny and analysis of language and structure. Many wrote very well about character relationships, but had little or direct relevance to say about language, form, and structure. The mark scheme focused totally on this aspect. Okay, and it tells a little bit about the different meters that they talk in and things like that, what makes a level 5 answer. So it can be quite detailed. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how people and the sort of things that people didn't do. Some other examples, and this is from the same examiner's report, and this is an example of a student. This is only part of it. This was actually quite a long answer, so you can see how they answered it. Okay, how a student, they will anonymise it, so you don't know who it is, and they showed you how they actually answered the question. And then over here, they will answer, they will explain a little bit about it. So it says about part A, the candidate here made some comments on the extract, blah, 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 blah. And you can look at this. I'm not going to read it all to you. And then it says a tip, examiner's tips. To enable the mark to move up to level 3, the response requires a little more focus on the witches and their apparitions. in part B, more depth of discussion. So it tells you what the exam is looking for. And this is done on every subject by every exam board. So it's not specific to AQA or OCR, or this is EdXL actually. So it's a really good idea to ask your teachers about it or get them yourself and look for them yourself. They're freely available, they're free, they're on the website. I downloaded this last night. I use them in my lessons an awful lot. And it helps my teaching as well. So, you know, it's a really good idea to get that. This is, right. One thing that you should make sure was about your timing. A common mistake for students is timing, okay? Look at how long, it's an English language paper, that it takes to do. So this is an hour and 45 minutes, 105 minutes, and you get how many points there are. It's a little bit further down, but usually most exams work on about 1 point per minute, roughly. Okay. Now, one thing that you should look at is what is the weighting of each topic. So, for example, okay. It says to spend 45 minutes on section B, and I can't find it now. About an hour on, not hour, sorry, beg your pardon, 45 minutes, and about 60 minutes on section A. But the thing is, if you look at section B, it actually is made up of 40 marks. So you do one or the other. Sometimes, so it's spend 45 minutes, sometimes it might be a good idea to do them second, to do the second part of it first. Sorry, making myself a bit more clearer. Do the second part first, because you will spend a lot of time on one topic, so writing one thing. Okay, and that becomes a little bit more apparent actually when you get, so look through the whole exam paper first before you start to see how the marks are distributed. Okay, so is there more marks at the beginning? Is it the end? Is it lots of small questions? Is it some larger questions? So part B in that exam paper, for example, the whole lot of part B is 40 marks. And that's just one thing you've got to write. So the creative writing bit is one bit, and it's 40 marks. So it's a lot of your exams, a lot of your stuff is going to be on just answering one question, basically. Some questions take longer to answer, obviously. So, you know, question 5 or 6 will take on that exam paper 40 minutes. The others will take slightly less. You don't want to run out of time. A lot of students, and I have to say this happens a lot of time, too many students run out of time because they don't plan their time on the longer questions, which usually at the end of the exam. Okay, so don't think you've got to do it in the order in which it is done. You can do it. You can do the exam, you know, in any order. You can answer the questions in any order. Generally, the easier ones at the beginning, it settles you down, it gets you thinking. There's nothing wrong with reading the questions first, getting your mind into gear, and then go to the end. I see as an examiner an awful lot of students who run out of time at the end, and then their larger questions, they don't finish it, and and they lose marks. Here's an example of a sociology paper, for example. Okay, now, hour and 45 minutes again, and yet the 12 markers on here, on the sociology papers, okay, there's 2 on each, there's 4 on each paper. It's out of 100. So 4 questions in one paper are 48% of your mark. Now, I'm telling some of my students, some of the ones who are probably going to get grade 6 or above, to do these 12 markers first. Because if you get them right, you're going to get a really good grade. So sometimes it's not always a good idea. It's down to you. I'm not saying you should always do it this way, but think about how you're going to answer the questions. As a sociology examiner, last year especially, I saw a lot of students, and I mean a lot, who ran out of time on the 12 markers. because they could have really spent about 15 minutes on each one of these, and they didn't. And they ran out of time, and a lot. I mean, I think I marked lots of these, and I didn't give more than I hardly gave any top marks, and because lots of them ran out of time. So please make sure that when you do this, that you do not run out of time. Timing is crucial on this, it really is. Also, in your English language paper, you'll be asked to write a creative story, okay? As the examiner report states here, this can be real or imagined. Now, when I tutor quite a few people in English, and when it asks them to write something, they sometimes have to write about their own experiences, but what they do sometimes is to think they've got to write about something that's real, and you don't. You can make it up. The examiner's not going to know whether or not you really did go to the seaside, or you went to the fair, or you went to somewhere else, you went on holiday. They're not going to know. Be imaginative. As I say there, use your imagination. Examiners see a lot of the same responses. Sorry, I made a mistake in it. See a lot of the same responses. If you don't go for your first choice, but be more imaginative with your response, will stand out more. So a lot of people, one of the friends of mine who's a head of English says, she tells her students to, whatever comes into your mind first, don't do it, because everyone will do it. Try to be more creative. And actually, the more creative it is, the more way out it is. Please make sure that you it will stand out. Examiners will go, oh, this is good. So an example of that, a friend of mine said that she was marking some exam papers for English a few years ago, and it was just write about an island, being stranded on an island, and everybody wrote about being on a desert island, as you would do. It says an island, and she said one student wrote about being on a traffic island, like you get in the middle of the road, and they couldn't get off it, and it made it stand out, and also because it was different, it made them think more creatively as well. So maybe do that, you know, really, really go into it creatively. So try to don't just go with your first response. Keep in mind how many points you are getting for each question. I've said it once before, okay? So for example, too often students think they have to write more than they need to. If you write too much for the smaller questions, you will run out of time. Now this one here, this is an examiner's report. It says, from lines 1 to 2, identify the word or phrase which explains at the time of the day. And Florence, what time of day Florence runs away? And the answer was morning. So this is a single word answer that is correct and so achieves the single mark available. For question 1, if the answer is only a single word, then that is all you need to write. Some people literally quoted from the source and they quoted about a whole sentence. Don't need to do it. If the answer is morning, write it. If it's only 1 mark, write 1 word. Don't think you've got to write tons, okay? Just to summarise then. Make your handwriting legible, please. Okay, it does help. Read the questions fully. Make sure you fully understand what the question is asking you to do. Read the examiner's reports. I can't stress that enough. Please do that. You will find what were the common mistakes in last year's exams, or the years before. Quite a lot of them are on there. Keep an eye on how many points are for each question. Okay, and make sure that, because I see it so often that people write too much on the small answers. What an examiner will do, if it's 3 marks and you've answered it in 2 sentences and you've written half a page, the examiner will stop reading. They won't read anymore because you've answered it. And say, right, you've answered that, 3 marks, boom, move on. And they will mark the next question. So you've wasted all that time writing. By writing half a page. Literally practice. This is why I think practice, writing the small answers, because then you won't actually overdo it. Do not spend too much time on short questions worth only a few points, which is sort of what I'm saying. And it may help to answer longer questions first, more difficult ones first. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. If you're probably going to be looking at getting grade 6 or above, I think look at maybe doing the longer answer first, maybe. Now, as you can see, my website is on there. You can go to that, and if you want the PowerPoint, I will email it to you. Last week I did another session. I don't know if any of you were in here, and people asked me for the PowerPoint. I'm quite happy to do that. Satchel will actually be recording this program, and they will actually send you a recording if you ask them. I don't record it. Satchel do that. I don't do that. So therefore, it will. Always quite a few, 12 of you. I hope that was okay. We went slightly over the time. If you've got any questions, you can either say them now or you can email them to me via my website, and I'll be quite happy to answer them. If you need any help with revision or you need any help with your studies, by all means get in touch with me. We can do this sort of thing over Zoom on a regular basis. Maybe my fees are quite reasonable, so get in touch. If you, I hope that's okay. You're free to go. I'm going to end the meeting in a minute. If you've got any questions, please email me or ask them now, and I can try and answer them for you. I'm quite happy to do that. If not, thanks a lot for coming. I hope you got something out of that, and I hope it was of some benefit to you. Okay, enjoy the rest of your evening. Goodbye. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for thanking me. That's really nice of you. I hope it was okay. Thank you. In terms of answering longer answer questions, first, would you also advise this for A-Level? Yeah, yeah, exactly. The same mistakes. I used to mark A-Level papers, and I used to get the same problem. Yeah, it's a common problem from students who run out of time. Yes, have a go at doing it first, Sarah. Don't, it doesn't work for everybody. Have a go and practice it first. So that's what I would do, Sarah. I wouldn't actually practice exam. I do a lot of practice with my students on exam technique and answering exam questions, because you don't want to, it's like going to football match. You want to practice first before you go in there. Okay, I need some accurate revision websites. If you email me from my website, I can point you in the direction of some. Okay, all right, Malik, sorry. I can help you with pointing you in the direction of some websites for some revision stuff. Okay. I'm not going to spell them out now because people will go, say it again. If you've got any more questions, I'm going to end the. So you're an A-Level student, Sarah, presumably, which is good. Okay, I'm going to end this lesson now because it's gone over time. I hope you've enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We've got Anne, James, Malik, and Robin. Thank you very much. You're free to leave. Thank you. I'm going to end it now. Enjoy the rest of your evening.